Hey, good morning, everybody. Josh here. Welcome to another morning meditation. I hope you were able to hear the thunder and rain this morning. It certainly woke me up, and I looked out the window and I could see the sunrise, and rain is just so beautiful and cleansing. It can also be really destructive, too. And that's sort of like the aspect of what we're going to consider this morning in our reading. Um, how Jesus is sort of like the rain, like that. Like when we come to Jesus, we can experience the cleansing and the healing and the rejuvenation. But if we choose to turn away after having experienced God through Christ, then we don't experience that healing. We don't experience that transformation. And in fact, it can even be more destructive. And if you remember yesterday's parable, we talked about the kingdom divided or the house divided, where Jesus is being accused of of casting out demons by the power of Satan, to which he responds to the accusation, saying that doesn't even make any sense. And then the Pharisees and some of the people who witness Jesus casting out the demon from the man, they demand a sign. Well, if you're not casting out demons from the power of Satan, then give us a sign that you're casting out by the power of God. Basically, Jesus just says, the only sign this generation is going to receive is the sign of Jonah, which, if you remember, Jonah spent 3 days in the belly of the whale, and sort of a metaphor for Jesus' 3 days in the grave before his resurrection. And so after all of this happens, he's still talking about this generation. So a generation of people who are completely missing the fact that God is among them right then, sort of unable to see. They continue to reject Jesus. And so this is what he says. When an evil spirit comes out of a man, it goes through an arid place, seeking rest, and does not find it. Then it says, I will return to the house I left. When it arrives, it finds the house unoccupied, swept clean, and put in order. Then it goes and takes with it 7 other spirits more wicked than itself, and they go in and live there. And the final condition of that man is worse than the first. That is how it will be with this wicked generation. This is a reading from Matthew chapter 12, verses 43 through 45. And you can also find it in Luke, but I just chose to read from Matthew today because we read from Luke yesterday. But essentially, what this is saying is, when the evil spirit comes out of a man, it goes through arid places seeking rest and does not find it. So we're talking about supernatural things, obviously. Evil spirits, good spirits, angels, demons. The scripture is very clear that they exist. We're talking about, we battle spiritual forces that are not of this world, that we can't see necessarily. And so when Jesus arrives in our lives, we become like the man. We're all, maybe we're not possessed by a literal demon, but we all have demons. We all have things that we struggle with, character flaws and things that we wish we could change, and so on. And so when we encounter Christ, those things are highlighted, and we recognize that there's perhaps another way of living. And if we choose to embrace Christ and follow him, then our lives can become ordered and clean and rejuvenated, like the rain, like we were talking about. So, but we don't always choose Jesus, right? And then it says, the Spirit says, and I will return to the house I left. When it arrives, it finds the house unoccupied, swept clean, and put in order. Then it goes and takes with it 7 other spirits more wicked than itself, and they go in and live there. The final condition of the man is worse than before. That is how it will be with this wicked generation. So when we have that initial encounter with Christ, Maybe you go to church for the first time, or somebody prays with you for the first time, or however it happens. We have that initial reaction of being on fire for Christ. We start to get our lives in order and start cleaning up and turning ourselves around and repenting and going in this different direction and beginning that sanctification journey. But then that's when things get tough. That's when the troubles set in, and maybe our friends start to judge us because we're better than them now, and we go to church now, and the people who are in our lives start to look at us differently because we're trying to have this relationship with Christ. So there's sort of a pivotal moment that happens. People will either continue on that journey despite some of the hardships that they've experienced. They'll continue to clean up their lives or continue to transform and become this new creation in Jesus, or they won't. And so this evil spirit returning and bringing more with it. In numerology, 7, the number 7 represents completeness, total completeness. So in essence, what Jesus is saying here is like, if you choose to follow me, because I am the way, your life can become totally transformed. If you experience me and you know me and you choose to go in the complete opposite direction, then you're totally, remember the number 7, you're totally giving in to these forces that do not want you to live, that only want death and destruction for you. And your life won't experience that transformation and healing. So the demons return. So they temporarily leave when you have that initial encounter with Jesus. You think, oh my gosh, I've experienced God. I'm going to turn my life around, and those spirits flee. The bad things start to go away. But if you turn around and you go back towards those bad things, you open yourself back up to all the things that were destroying you before. And so that's sort of what this is symbolizing. Only Jesus is talking about this for an entire generation of people. And of course, the end state is that the final condition of the man is that it was worse off than before. That is how it will be with this wicked generation. So we see Jesus applying this to this entire generation. I'm applying it to us specifically today of how we can relate to this. But it also, it applies to our generation as well. Anybody who doesn't know Jesus but has that experience with him, we all have a choice. We can be transformed and have a loving relationship with our Creator, or we can choose a different way and end up just wandering around aimlessly and opening ourselves up to all kinds of potential danger. So I hope that's a good platform for you to consider today the state of your spiritual health and how it is that you view salvation and your experience with Jesus, and maybe some people that you know that you can pray for who haven't yet decided to have that relationship with Christ. All right, guys, I love you. Hope you found this helpful today, and I'll see you right back here tomorrow.